My fellow Sadzaitas, it's been a while since I gave you guys a detailed update on current affairs. But what a week it's been. Events are unfolding so fast, it's becoming impossible to keep up. You snooze, you lose. A touch is a move. So for the first time, the Geza vets have publicly admitted that ZANU PF rigs elections. They also admitted that elections in Zimbabwe are a waste of time for as long as the status quo remains. They want a complete collapse of the current government and the establishment of a transitional authority which will oversee the implementation of far-reaching reforms and the democratization of the electoral system in Zimbabwe, so we can once and for all arrest this vicious cycle of disputed elections. Do they really mean this, or is all part of a grand plan? Meanwhile, the ED 2030 Brigade is still in denial. They are going around the country bribing all veterans in the hope of stopping them from supporting the Geza revolution. That tells you that ED is panicking. Where was this money all along? Why now when he's facing a possible revolution? Also, the Zimbabwe Republic Police has shown that it has no capacity to arrest Geza. It's been almost 6 days since it opened dockets against him, yet no arrest has happened. It even called for members of the public to help in apprehending him, yet he remains a free man like HKD. Danger Zone Baba. Zimbos are now saying HKG, meaning Atimire kusimbisa Geza. Translated, we won't stop venerating Geza. Hanzi Geza is top striker, a real top gullis. But he has been quiet for a few days now since the ZRP started looking for him, leading many to conclude that he's now in hiding. A sentiment he dismissed a day ago through Heart and Soul TV, which is a platform he's been using to communicate with the nation. He says that he's safe and sound. Knox Chivero, a member of the Geza revolution, called on Zimbabweans to wait for the signal. What signal? Well, the signal for demonstrations. Arab Spring style. It seems Zimbabwe is on the brink of something catastrophic, or perhaps more appropriately, Geza-strophic. Is this the end of ED, or are we being hook-winked? And if this is the end of ED, then what will happen to the tenderpreneurs? Zigananda. And if it comes to the point where these tenderpreneurs will have to run for their lives, Whitney Wachaita say naimi. I mean, when was the last time he actually ran? Well, fellow Sadzaitas, slay queens and bingers, socialites, papalites, wasinamalites, harukujiga rice. Never Sinama rights. Welcome to the special report. Now, Christopher Mutsvangwa recently held a press conference in which he was widely expected to blast Geza. We all waited patiently for the press conference with our brand new dictionaries, but surprisingly, Mutsvangwa did not attack Geza. He instead called him a comrade and spoke glowingly about their great working relationship in the past, much to the disappointment of many who were expecting an action-packed presser. The only negative thing Mutsvangwa said about Geza was the claim that he is being abused by the same people who arrested his son last year. Remember last year, Mutsvangwa's son, Neville, was arrested on charges of money laundering and the possession of Starlink equipment. Mutsvangwa then said that this arrest was the work of a faction in ZANU PF which has captured the judiciary and manipulating it for the purpose of scoring political points. That is the faction which Mutsvangwa now says is backing Blessed Runesu Geza and his revolution. So effectively, Christopher Mutsvangwa admits that ZANU PF is divided. There is a massive resistance to this 2030 nonsense in ZANU PF. That is precisely the reason why President ED has embarked on this massive bribing campaign countrywide, which his bootlickers and praise and worshippers are fronting. So instead of doing the work, ED's government is actually seized with this 2030 nonsense. The country has been in political campaign mode since 2023. The economy is suffering as a result. Businesses are either shutting down or closing. Yet, cabinet ministers are gallivanting all over the country, spending the money that we don't have on this bribing campaign, preaching their 2030 nonsense. Take a look at these pictures. These are Zimbabwean patients in Zimbabwean hospitals. These are critical issues that ED's government should be attending to, yet they are seized with trying to ensure a Mnangagwa dynasty. Clearly, common sense is not common. So, Geza is getting so much support simply because he is now the face of resistance, not only in ZANU PF, but in Zimbabwe as a whole. His movement is literally filling the void created by the absence of a vibrant opposition. Even opposition leaders are posting about him without shame, almost as if he's their new leader. Almost as if they have subcontracted the democratic struggle to him. But Zimbabweans from all walks of life are rallying behind Geza. He is a phenomenon. He is the talk of the town. What worries me is the fact that the whole nation is actually waiting for a signal from people that we really shouldn't blindly trust. Now that really worries me. It worries me that we are so quick to trust even without a tangible reason to. Are we not being excitable in our quest to see the back of President Mnangagwa? Because in our quest to remove President Mugabe, we became blind followers. Actually, there is an idiom which says that once bitten, twice shy. Now, the irony of this idiom is that we were actually beaten by ED. So doesn't that make it an idiom? Did you get it? Anyway, don't mind me. Sometimes my mind just gets lost in creativity. I was just talking about the idiom once beaten, twice shy. What that simply means is a person who has been hurt trying to do something becomes more careful or fearful when he tries doing the same thing again. That simply means, from here onwards, Zimbabweans must proceed with caution. We are currently in this situation because of our recklessness, our inability to stop and think, which often renders us political condoms, getting used for the fulfillment of the political desires of vultures and vampires. You know, instead of just blindly following the war veterans in 2017, we really should have asked ourselves, why are they asking us to march? Because if they're asking us to march, it means they need us. And if they need us, it means that their plan can't work without us. And if their plan can't work without us, it means that we have a bargaining chip. And if we have a bargaining chip, it means that we can make demands as a condition for our participation in whatever they're planning. That way, So yes, right now the war veterans are saying all the right things, but that is exactly what scares me. A classic case of too good to be true. I repeat, even if the war veterans really mean what they are saying, we must proceed with caution. We owe it to ourselves. Once bitten, twice shy. Rino nyenga rino warara, rino zosumza msoro rawana. In 2017, they came to you, said all the right things, and then they asked you to march. We all know how that ended. They've come back again, and this time around, they are offering you something that seems like a better deal. They are saying all the right things, and once again, they will soon ask you to demonstrate. Well, my question is, what are you as the citizens going to ask of them? At least have some guarantees. Will this be a broad-based movement, not just some closed-door meetings between the war vets and the military establishment? How do you even know that they will honor all these promises that they are making now? What guarantee do you have that the proposed transitional authority won't have military interference, given that the military establishment has always been a major stakeholder in Zimbabwean politics? How do we know that this is not yet another properly calculated plan to remove Mnangagwa without using the military so that they can avoid the burden and legitimacy troubles associated with staging a coup? Now, for the benefit of my international audience who might not be familiar with Zimbabwean politics, maybe you don't know what's happening and you're wondering why many Zimbabweans are all of a sudden rallying behind this old man who until recently was relatively unknown outside ZANU PF. Well, you see, the president of Zimbabwe is getting a taste of his own bitter medicine. Oh, I can assure you, his medicine is very bitter. And he is a bitter too. Anorakasha. Yes, ED has been involved in every dark period in Zimbabwe's history since independence. Whether you're talking of the Gukuraunda atrocities in the early 80s or the 2008 electoral violence, the long sleeve, short sleeve, barbaric choppings which took place in ZANU PF political bases, which I prefer calling the Zimbabwean version of Hitler's concentration camps. So yes, ED is a certified bitter who is now tasting his own bitter medicine. As we all know, President Mnangagwa took over in 2017 after a military operation which laid out the foundation for the removal of Robert Mugabe. The not a coup. What made it a coup was the fact that the military deployed itself. Section 213 of the Zimbabwean Constitution is very clear. It says only the president can deploy the military. Yet, the military deployed itself in November 2017. What's funny is that throughout the coup, the military maintained that President Mugabe remained in charge. They kept referring to him as their commander-in-chief. At no time did they ever say he was incapacitated. The deployment of the military in Zimbabwe is something that only the president is mandated to do, and the president gets that mandate from the Constitution, Section 213. Even acting presidents of Zimbabwe are not allowed to deploy the military. Only the president can deploy the military, yet the military in November 2017 deployed itself and suspended government operations without the knowledge of the president. That is what usurping the authority of the president means. So, in order to sanitize that coup, the military, working together with war veterans, then asked people to march and allowed the president to go about his business freely, though his government was no longer functional, with some of his ministers fleeing Zimbabwe and some getting incarcerated. The military hoped that the public demonstrations would force Mugabe to resign, but Mugabe was very stubborn. He refused to resign. So the military then moved to Plan B, and that was impeachment by Parliament. And for the benefit of those who might not know what an impeachment is, well, you see, apart from a general election, a Parliament is the only institution that can legally remove a Zimbabwean president through a process called impeachment, where Parliament votes to remove the said president on grounds of incapacitation or willful violation of the Constitution. So, when Robert Mugabe finally resigned on the 21st of November, Parliament was actually in the process of removing him via impeachment. That means, even if Mugabe hadn't resigned, he was still going to be removed by Parliament. And when all of this happened, the 2017 coup was sanitized. But sanitization was not enough. They got it legalized. Judge Chiweshe declared that the actions of the army did not amount to a coup. So when you look at it, they used the people, parliament and judiciary to insulate their coup. The people legitimized it, parliament normalized it, and the judiciary legalized it. And so, Mnangagwa became president, and he has been in power since 2017. But after realizing how sweet power is, he no longer wants to step down. He is on his second term, which is his last. The next Zimbabwean general election is scheduled for 2028, and obviously, Mnangagwa won't be eligible to run in that election. However, he doesn't want to step down. So to ensure his continued stay in power, he is seeking to amend Section 91 and Section 328 of the Zimbabwean Constitution, which bar him from remaining president beyond 2028. And as you can imagine, this has been met with a lot of resistance, not just from the opposition, but from the ruling ZANU PF itself. A faction of the war vets led by this guy, Blessed Geza, who himself is a senior member of the ruling party, has publicly called for President Mnangagwa to resign. Like I said before, the war veterans are not just calling for ED's resignation. They are also calling for a complete collapse of the current government and the establishment of a transitional authority which will steer the country towards far-reaching political and economic reforms with the aim of getting rid of our culture of electoral violence and the unending cycle of disputed elections. And as many of you will know, transitional governments by nature don't include political parties. A transitional government is made up of unelected officials. It's a government of technocrats, experts in their fields, appointed on account of their competence, not political seniority or affiliation. That's what makes a transitional government different from a government of national unity. Because, you see, the circumstances that require the formation of either a GNU or a transitional government are more or less the same. You know, political crisis, a period of conflict, or extreme national disaster. All of these can warrant the formation of a GNU or a transitional government. A GNU brings together a number of rival leaders and political parties in order to promote national unity and political stability. But because a GNU is made up of rival political parties, national unity is not always possible. Because this is a government made up of people who naturally oppose each other. People who, based on their political ideology, have different views on how the country should move forward. This often makes decision and policy making very difficult, thereby impeding economic development. A transitional government, on the other hand, is not made up of politicians. It's made up of technocrats whose only objective is to serve the country. They don't have a political party to report to or political responsibilities to fulfill. That makes a transitional government a very good proposal for bringing normalcy to Zimbabwe. A government of national unity has no capacity to reform our politics and our economics. Zero capacity. ZANU PF will never reform itself out of power. For as long as ZANU PF is in any government, expect no reforms. That's why the MDC was not able to secure any meaningful reforms during the 2009 to 2013 GNU. If anything, ZANU PF used that GNU to regroup, reset and restart. And well, the rest is history. So there is therefore no doubt that a transitional government is the best way forward in bringing about the necessary changes that are needed for the eventual holding of free and fair elections in Zimbabwe. However, the question you should ask is, when people go on the streets, who will they be demonstrating against? Is it against ED or is it against ZANU PF? And if you are demonstrating against ZANU PF, are you by extension also demonstrating against the military? Because ZANU PF chinu che military nima war vets. Remember that war veterans are an extension of the military. They belong to the same constituency as the military. War veterans are like a reserve military force. That's why in 2017 they worked together so well to remove Robert Mugabe. That's why ED is trying so hard to pacify them by bribing them. Some of these war vets are former commanders of the military before and after independence. So, our military boss is really ready to consent to such radical changes that are being proposed by these war veterans. Because I really don't think that the war veterans will go ahead with this thing without sufficient backing from the military bosses. Do you realize that in all their addresses so far, they haven't said anything negative about the military? If anything, they have been defending the military bosses and fighting for their rights. Remember how they bemoaned the unprecedented high number of military deaths of generals, which they called assassinations. A day ago, these war vets called for Zimbabweans to wait for the signal as they sort out a few things before people can be asked to go and march. This suggests that there are talks currently happening behind closed doors, possibly talks between the war veterans and the military. It's possible that there is an impasse regarding how this thing should be carried out. The only problem with that is, these high-level secretive meetings don't involve you and me. These are secretive meetings between ZANU PF affiliated groups who have previously not stood with the people. What guarantee do you have that their deliberations will be about you and you only? Do you see the military establishment endorsing these radical changes being proposed by the war veterans? Because even if the Geza revolution is genuine, tsoro inogona ngofira ipapapa pakushaya military backing, because make no mistake, kumilitary ndo kune power rese. Military establishment ndo vene vairewa na ED. Wangu randataura iri ED, I mean ndo garo taura ED mchato nditi Idi Amin. Bars on bars, tafiane ma bars kudarika zupko. They should make me Minister of Transport. Anyway, focus, Tafi, focus. I was saying, if the war vets don't get sufficient backing from the military, tsoro inogona ngofira ipap. But inengeuraiwa ni kutsurei. Well, don't forget that the military has a long-held view that opposition leaders are Western puppets planted to effect regime change in Zimbabwe. Is it criminal to ask whether that view has changed? And if so, what changed it? Because once a transitional government has been put in place and the whole electoral system reformed with the military going back to the barracks, there is no coming back for ZANU PF. It will be game over. And that automatically means that an opposition party will come to power at the end of it all. Are military bosses really ready for that? And if so, what changed their mind? Because stopping Mnangagwa is not equivalent to destroying ZANU PF. Stopping Mnangagwa is not equal to stopping ZANU PF. Chiwenga is patiently waiting for his turn, you know. He has been slowly building his candidature around the anti-corruption agenda. He is the one who brought the word Chigananda to the fore, and now everyone is running with it. And there are people who have been saying, why is Chiwenga not publicly speaking against the 2030 madness? Well, my guy, what do you want him to say? No, honestly, what do you really want Chiwenga to say? This is politics, my dear. You don't get reckless. You strategize. All in good time. Need I remind you that Mnangagwa used to attend Grace Mugabe rallies and just sit there as Grace was attacking him? Who remembers that Bulawayo rally when Robert Mugabe said, "Ndakatadza ere kuisa Mnangagwa pa VP. Kana ndakatadza nasi chaiendo mdonedza." Meanwhile, ED was just seated there quietly. He could have stood up and said, "Iwe mdarewa wakundijairira iwo. Makundijairira nekamukadzi kakwaka. Ndakakuseva mna 2008 and this is how you thank me." But no, he just sat there quietly as if he was powerless, as if he had given up. But a week or so later, he staged a coup d'etat and became president. So therefore, the notion that Chiwenga should publicly speak against ED to show his disapproval of the 2030 nonsense is silly. This is politics, ladies and gentlemen. Real politics happens behind closed doors, not at press conferences and rallies. No. Press conferences and rallies are just platforms to announce what has already been planned. I repeat, real politics happens behind closed doors. You will be shocked that even certain people that seem like they support ED right now are actually scheming against ED under the cover of darkness. That's the nature of politics. By the way, before the November 2017 coup, Simon Kayamoyo seemed as if he was anti-Mnangagwa. He's actually the one who announced the firing of Mnangagwa from Mugabe's government. But after the coup, Simon Kayamoyo became an integral part of not only ED's ZANU PF, but also ED's government. That's the nature of politics. But what is clear is that most people in ZANU PF, and indeed in the military, are against the ED 2030 madness. However, my submission is that people must not confuse the anti-ED campaign with the anti-ZANU PF campaign. The radical changes being proposed by the Geza revolution threaten the very existence of ZANU PF. A transitional government as proposed by the Geza revolution will signal the immediate end of the ZANU PF rule. Is Chiwenga ready for this? Is the military establishment ready for this? Because we have already established that the war veterans are not prepared to act against the military. Unless, of course, if the idea of a transitional government is a ruse, a decoy, or maybe a bait to get people on the streets and pressure Mnangagwa to step down without using the gun so they can avoid the troubles of legitimacy that are associated with staging an outright coup. If there's one thing that's clear to me, it's that the military is not prepared to stage an outright coup. That's why even in 2017, they were very careful about it and insulated their action by involving the people, the legislature, and the judiciary. And why do they not want to stage an outright coup? Well, it's because they want international legitimacy. They know that SADC won't support any military action against ED. So therefore, the people are the safest instrument that can be used for the removal of ED. I hope I'm wrong about this. In fact, you should pray that I am wrong. I pray that the Geza revolution is genuine and that if the military is in on this, it has miraculously decided to reform itself and stand with the people. Because if that is not the case, then Kwitiswa Part 2. But whatever happens, I'll be here to marinate you guys with all the details without fear or favor. Because on this platform, we say it as it is. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoy the content, please like and share.